A single speech in New York may have just altered Europe's future. At the United Nations, Russia delivered what analysts now call a final ultimatum. Russian officials, before the world, declared their patience gone and demanded earnest talks with the West, warning the window for compromise is closing fast. This is not empty rhetoric. Observers describe it as a turning point, a moment when the world faces decisions that could reshape destinies. If dismissed, this ultimatum could trigger a crisis with far-reaching global consequences. Now, every leader, every citizen, waits for the fallout. What was actually said, and why does this moment matter so much? Let's look at Russia's words, the demands they set, and the warnings that followed. The stakes could hardly be higher. How did the West and Russia become trapped in this escalating standoff? For years, NATO and the European Union have called Russia the gravest threat to European security. Their decisions have been uncompromising: support Ukraine at any price, or risk Russian aggression spreading across the continent. But this approach has risks. Russian diplomats argue the West has cornered itself. Admitting failure would mean conceding defeat, a step few leaders can take. Repeating old promises only leads Europe and the world toward deeper crisis. Political credibility, public trust, and international stability are now in jeopardy. The danger has never been greater. So what did Russia announce at the United Nations, and why did it raise the stakes even more? Russia's ultimatum was direct. Their message forced Western leaders to confront a new and dangerous reality. Moscow declared negotiations are possible, but only on their terms, and warned patience is wearing thin. The window for compromise is closing. If Western capitals continue supporting Kiev's current approach, Russia threatens to end talks completely. Any further bloodshed, they say, will be on Kiev and its supporters. This is not just diplomatic theater. Russia's delegation drew comparisons to the propaganda that fueled World War II, accusing Europe's leaders and media of demonizing Moscow in ways that echo history's darkest moments. The warning: repeat past mistakes and risk disaster. For NATO and the European Union, every decision is fraught. Admitting policy failure risks severe damage to reputation. Doubling down risks a war that could drag the continent and the world toward catastrophe. Where does this leave the main players? What options remain as the stakes rise? All eyes now turn to the responses from NATO, the European Union, and Kiev. Their next steps could decide whether the world steps back from the brink or falls over it. Which future will Europe choose? Russia's ultimatum has forced the West to a crossroads, with three paths ahead. First, real negotiations, possibly in Istanbul, could happen. But success requires the West to accept hard, Russian-focused concessions, redrawing Europe's security order. Second, escalation by NATO. If Western leaders increase support, they risk direct confrontation with Russia. This could lead to a much wider, possibly uncontrollable war. Third, a frozen conflict. Here, neither side wins. Europe faces years, even decades, of instability, economic costs, and no real peace. Each option carries grave risks: more lost lives, economic shockwaves, or a grinding, endless war. The decisions made now will shape future generations. So, as history hangs in suspense, what lessons can leaders and citizens draw from this ultimatum? How should they respond? The world watches as Europe stands at a decisive moment. The answers and the costs remain uncertain. How do we avoid repeating history's darkest chapters? Denying reality leads to disaster. In the 1930s, European leaders ignored looming threats until catastrophe struck the world. Now, similar patterns emerge. Propaganda and denial deepen crises. When leaders distort the narrative, truth is lost, and danger spreads. Facing facts is essential. Ignoring problems or rejecting diplomacy only raises the risks. Open dialogue is the best path to prevent wider disaster. Public vigilance matters. Complacency is a luxury we cannot afford. Each of us must question what we hear, demand accountability, and ensure our leaders face reality. If we do not, we risk stumbling into disaster. The consequences now stretch beyond borders, threatening security, economies, and peace in Europe and beyond. Russia's ultimatum is a clear warning. Denial is no longer an option. The choices we make now will shape the future. Ignore this turning point, and history could repeat itself, at an even higher price. Right now, the world stands at a crossroads. Complacency is not an option. Russia's ultimatum is more than posturing. It is a warning. The cost of inaction could be peace, prosperity, and the security of generations to come. If leaders ignore this, the crisis will not stay in Eastern Europe. Tensions will spread, shaking global stability and reshaping our children's future. This is not a time for spectators. We must demand accountability, insist on real negotiation, open dialogue, and steps toward lasting peace. If we fail, the consequences will not fade. They will echo through societies for years.